Hello, my friends and fans of cool stuff. Let me tell you a tale about a cautionary tale about a game about a cautionary tale. I'm talking about Cyberpunk 2077 and its new DLC, Phantom Liberty, which has yet to release as I'm reviewing this. And this will be a non-spoilery review using footage that was provided to me by CD Projekt Red, so not using any of the footage that I captured, which is fine. I'll tell you all about my experience. So I'm using their footage. I played it on the PlayStation 5, and my experience with Cyberpunk 2077 has been pretty crazy. Of course, I tried it when it first launched in 2020, and I played it initially on the PlayStation 5, which was the PS4 version on the PS5, and it was not good. I got into one of the early missions, and I was being served a drink from an NPC, and that NPC disappeared, and I went, what the hell? I can't play this. There's gonna be bugs all over the damn place. So I stopped playing it there. I played it a little bit on the PC, and it was working better, but then I tried it out on Stadia, and it was actually working a little bit better there, and then I went back to the PC, and I've just sort of been tooling around with it. I've streamed it a bunch of times on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/EPN. Hope you're following that. And I've had a lot of fun every time that I've taken the time to dive back in. I played it even on the Asus ROG Ally. I've been playing it on the Steam Deck, so I've tried it in a bunch of different scenarios, but never in this cohesive, singular kind of experience. And of course, we know that CD Projekt Red has recently updated, or is about to update. I can't keep the timing straight. There's so many games coming out. Cyberpunk 2077 is now at a 2.0 state, and they've added all kinds of new functionality like car combat and lots of nice touches to the UI and the experience in general. All of that so that Phantom Liberty, the new DLC, takes advantage of it, which is great. So I dove into Cyberpunk 2077, and luckily you can boot up Phantom Liberty from the get-go, so I was not that far on the PS5 version of the game. I'd played it a couple of times over the years, but I'd been primarily on the PC. So you can start fresh with a new game and jump right into Phantom Liberty if you want to do that. But that would be crazy for anybody to do because it's really tied to the events and the stories that have taken place in the core Cyberpunk 2077 game. So if you have not played Cyberpunk 2077 at all yet, play the main game before you play Phantom Liberty. That should be pretty obvious for everybody out there. But what happened when I dove in, I didn't know that I could just start with Phantom Liberty, so I was just cruising around in the main core game at a 2.0 state, and my eyes fell out of my head. This is such a beautiful game. It is so gorgeous. All of the lighting effects and the visual details, the facial animations, reflections, and the smoke that you can see in the air that sort of changes the light as you're walking through, all of the cinematic details. You're playing the thing. I was just going, oh my God, I cannot believe, I mean, it looks like the future. I kept thinking back to playing the original Wipeout on the original PlayStation, going, how did games get to this? I was thinking the exact kind of same thing, playing a 3-year-old game, well, not quite 3-year-old, 2.5-year-old video game here that's just been tuned and left to bake in the oven, and all the people at CD Projekt Red have just been killing themselves to improve the experience. And here we are with a base game. The Cyberpunk 2077 base game is just phenomenal, and this DLC is exquisite. It was so much freaking fun to play, and I couldn't think of anything else. It really just got its hooks into me, and I was so grateful too, because I wanted to have this Cyberpunk experience when this game originally came out, but I never could. It was so disjointed, and it was buggy, and it was just brutal. It was just such a terrible experience to release the game unfinished like it was, and it just annoyed all of us and disappointed investors and developers, and it was like the cautionary tale, never do that. And I don't think CD Projekt Red will ever do that again, or many other developers out there. This will be the core example. But now that this game has sort of been able to be tuned and polished like this, it's fully like a No Man's Sky redemption arc. This is a phenomenal experience, but Phantom Liberty is almost large enough to qualify as its own experience. You go into a new area of Night City, or the Night City kind of map, because there's other parts outside of Night City that you travel to in Cyberpunk. It's a place called Dogtown, which is kind of a destroyed version of like Las Vegas. It's kind of deserty, and there's lots of casinos and lots of opulence that has been demolished and destructed. And everywhere you look, you see people. And that's one of the remarkable things about this technology, is that the people in Cyberpunk look like they're really living there and they're dealing with things. They're buckling under their addictions to technology and what, cyber drugs and all the other sort of addictions that have befallen this society, which is in ruins, but there is also like tons of wealth as well and power. And so in Phantom Liberty, you still play as V, the character that you've created in the core Cyberpunk experience. And you are still joined at the hip by Johnny Silverhand, played by Keanu Reeves. And he's a vision, and this is a tiny bit of a spoiler, but he's a vision that nobody else can see, and it's got to do with the cyber wiring and all kinds of stuff. But I won't spoil that. I won't get into that. But he comes along for the ride, and so he's there all the time. But new to this experience is a character called Solomon Reed, played by Idris Elba, who is fantastic in this game. And what's really cool, this is a role-playing experience. There's a ton of action in it, and the gunplay has been enhanced with the 2.0 update as well. It's really fun to get into firefights, and you've got all these cool Bioshock-like cyber attacks and abilities as well. This game is kind of like a fusion of things that you would see in Watch Dogs and Deus Ex and Metal Gear Solid and stuff from Bethesda. It also plays a little bit like Black Mirror or Escape from New York. I was feeling some Alien type vibes in certain moments in this game. It's big, it's epic, and it's so special. It's so tailored and worked on, and people have really tried to build something unique and fresh and super slick. And so the world just feels developed. It just feels like every corner that you go around, you might run into somebody that's going to attack you. But more often than not, I just felt empathy for these people that were buckling and struggling and just beat up and downtrodden. And so you see this poverty everywhere, and then you see this military kind of militia force in there and different gangs that are trying to take advantage of the situation. And it's horrifying. And it's incredibly violent. There's crazy violence, and there's some over-the-top kind of dialogue as well that you'll always run into with different people. And there's some terminology that the characters will just spout that's all tied to Mike Pondsmith's original tabletop role-playing Cyberpunk games. And some of it, feels aggressive and overwhelming. I certainly felt that when I played Cyberpunk originally. It's like, wow, this is just so committed to. Like, everybody is just in their own kind of world. And sometimes it doesn't kind of feel super organic and a little bit forced, and some actors are better than others. But Keanu Reeves is amazing in this, and Idris Elba is amazing in this. And what's cool is that all of the actors have lots of different layers that they've approached the scenes, because choices have repercussions, they have meaning, they have power. And this is also one of those games, not only is the world so rich and so open to exploration, Dogtown feels a little bit confined, and most of the stuff that you do in Phantom Liberty is kind of confined to this area. But of course you can go through this kind of security line and go back into Night City and cruise around wherever you want to. And you can also get back on the Cyberpunk storylines if you jump forward and just dive into Phantom Liberty, which is what happened to me. I started doing some core Cyberpunk missions, not knowing that I had left the Phantom Liberty DLC experience. And there are some little details in terms of the UI and the navigation. Sometimes you're pressing X to select things, sometimes you're pressing the square button on the PlayStation 5. And I did feel sometimes that there's just so much detail that it encroaches on your personal space when you're looking at everything from first person. And it actually got a little more comfortable to sort of observe the world when I was on the back of a motorcycle and I was in third person. I kind of wish that there was a third person mode, but what happens, obviously the gunplay is much better in first person, and what happens over time is that sense of investment into you as V definitely takes hold, and first person took a while for it to kind of like wash over me and really appreciate it and enjoy it, and also understand everything that I'm looking at. Like, every neon light bounces and creates its own, reflection and shadow structure and everything, and there's debris and dust and, scattered remnants, and you could pick up all kinds of stuff. It's a lot. It's just a lot. It was crafted like that. It was made like that. And what's really fascinating is that I just played a game like this with Starfield, and Starfield has incredible details as well. But I don't know, there's just something a lot more human and organic and realistic about the world building and the environmental stuff and the human stuff that we get in Cyberpunk. And it's an interesting thing to contrast. I also just adored this grimy, gritty, brutal world in Cyberpunk. Like, I wanted to stay in Night City, and the more I played, like, I put everything else away, and I just had to finish Phantom Liberty. I had to get through it. I was really interested about how this was going to end up. I was also curious if there were going to be, technical issues and crashes and stuff, but it ran well. I did have a couple of crashes, I'm going to say that. There are a couple nitpicky things here and there that bug me, some line reads, some choices. I never became a big fan of hacking in Cyberpunk 2077. It's always been a little opaque to me to figure out exactly what the hell I'm doing. I guess that kind of fits with the fiction of it, but there's just so much to adore and appreciate in this freaking game. And honestly, this has been the most phenomenal year, and I've played so many incredible games. I have not enjoyed myself with a game more than playing Cyberpunk 2077 again and playing this new Phantom Liberty DLC. This is the most mind-expanding, mind-blowing video game experience I've had so far this year. I absolutely loved it. I am definitely going to be thinking about this game come Rocket and Ray Gun Award time, even though I'm talking mostly about this DLC, but this 2.0 upgrade really changes the core experience. And if you haven't jumped into Cyberpunk yet, I really think you should. This is some phenomenal game making. And I love this Phantom Liberty DLC as well. Like, there's just lots of great ties to past characters, and there's lots of allegiances that you make with some kind of shady characters, some puppet master characters. Idris Elba is amazing, and there are some other new characters introduced that have resonance as well, but also work really hard to kind of create this sense of connection that you have with V, and it's a really powerful, empathetic connection to this character that you are building and creating and having the choices for. So yeah, bravo, CD Projekt Red, you've really done it. This is the game that we all wanted when you announced it and we waited for. It's finally here in 2023. Phantom Liberty is amazing. I'm going to give the DLC 10, but the whole game at this point is a 10. This is incredible stuff.